Greetings, students, and welcome to this episode of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from Orange County, California. This is the website, the vlog, and the podcast that you come to in order to learn more about different travel destinations. This is where you come to hopefully discuss them and come together as a community. Hopefully, this will inspire you to travel more and enjoy life more. Now, you can reach me at a variety of different social media sites, starting first and foremost with my social media site and obviously my website, which is theprofessortravel.com. On YouTube, Facebook, and on TikTok, you can reach me at theprofessortravel. On Instagram, you can reach me at the_professor_travel. If you're a Twitter then you can reach me there at theprofessortr1. And if you're a blogger, you can reach me at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, I am so very excited to introduce you to a visiting professor of ours, a returning professor of ours, Justin Knepper. Hi, how you doing, Justin?
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming back. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to see the previous video, Justin and I did a video. I think it was it posted last November, I want to say, where you had just gotten back from a trip to Portugal, and in that time now you've actually moved to Portugal. And so part of this video is going to be to discuss what that process looks like for someone who's maybe a U.S. native moving out of the country, and what that looks like. So I'm very excited to learn more about that. But before we get started, can you just discuss a little bit of your credentials with my students, the listeners, please?
Absolutely. In a nutshell, I'm born and raised in California, San Diego specifically, lived up and down the coast, most recently in San Francisco. Most of my career was in banking. And then education, I was a big old nerd. I have a master's in English and management, but mostly it was around, creativity and engaging with people. So, I had a lot of experiences in my career, corporate and volunteer work, but also a lot of that was travel, not just for work, for personal pleasure. And that's where it led us to Portugal. And travel to many continents, from Japan to Africa to throughout Europe. And now we continue the trek in our next phase of life. So that's where we are today.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about what prompted a move. So talk to me a little bit about why you even thought about wanting to move to Portugal. That's a huge commitment.
Yeah, I think it came out of just a passion. Me and my husband both love to travel. And when we first met and as we progressed in our relationship and traveling together, I think it was always on our radar, even from like my 20s, that I wanted to live abroad. And the more and more I visited Europe was definitely a central post that I really wanted to land, mainly because it was so easy to travel throughout the European nations and other adjacent countries. So I think that was first and foremost in my mind why I was focusing on that mentally. The last couple of years where we decided to move on, we had gotten married and we wondered, where's our next phase on taking us? What's our permanent move? We realized it was a really good time based on our age and our careers that both of us, well, he retired and I semi-retired from the corporate world and became my own entrepreneur. That's what prompted the actual move. It was saying, okay, we're done with this part of our lives and moving on to the travel portion, enjoying life and discovering what my creativity is for my entrepreneurship. And that's what led us to Europe and Portugal specifically, as I mentioned in our last discussion and in the trips here. It was research, and the research led to a checklist of what's important for us, and every viewer could agree that what is your intent for moving? Is it a cultural experience? Is it a better quality of life? Is it affordability? What is it? And for us, it was many of those things, and those created a list that led to Portugal. Affordability, the people, the culture, and the location.
Excellent. And you live in a really, really nice area. We'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, for me, and talk to me about this, because this is how I feel about the whole thought. There's a psychological component that comes to this. It's like, okay, this is a major thing in your life. Yeah. Moving, and I've helped you with your moves before locally. Moving from one city to another is not a big deal. Moving even from one state to another may be a little bit of a thing, but it's not super large. But moving out of the country, there's a huge level of commitment that goes along with that. Were there any psychological or, discussions that you and your husband had about, gosh, is this the right time? Are we doing this at the right moment? Talk to me a little bit about the struggles that go along with that too.
I think that what we mentally prepared ourselves for, and everybody's different, where we are, as I mentioned before, in our careers, we're ready to transition out of that. So we're ready to walk away from our normal day-to-day activity. And what the new norm would be for us required an adventure. We are adventurers. And so mentally, we're ready for that adventure. I think where we all kept checking in with each other was, and we read about this expats and people living abroad, not just for short term, but with the intent to live long term. Like you said before, moving from city to city or state to state in the US, you don't think of a lot of little things. You don't have to change a lot of things other than your utilities and things like that. When you move to another country, you're really reinventing your life, literally. I mean, it's everything from records, social security numbers, health numbers, registering everywhere. It is really saying, uprooting and saying, what is my new established life? Here's my name, and I was born in the state, and that's all you walk in with, literally. And you got to figure out what the country requires for you to establish residency, citizenship, and what that entails, which you always have established in your U.S. life. So I think mental check-in was, okay, do we have our list? As long as we understand where we're going and that there'll be some challenges and bureaucracy, and understanding, I don't say you're giving up anything, but you're transitioning out of certain things you're used to, so don't get frustrated as you go along. And that was really healthy for us mentally, because we are here 4 months now, and we had a rough week this week in the sense that there were like 15 things. We're like, oh, this is so much bureaucracy. But today we solved half of them. We're like, okay, this is what we knew we were going to do. We're 4 months into it, and we did this during COVID. We're doing pretty good. And that's the mental factor, the check-in points with your partner, whoever you're with, or if you're on your own, understanding that transition mentally to another country, there's a lot of moving pieces, but stay focused on the end game.
It sounds like the communication, not only between you and your partner, was really important during this transition, but also you brought up this, this expat communication that you've also been resolving with. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of communities around the world established this. In Portugal, we had a fantastic one. It was relatively new. It was only a couple of years old in Facebook. It was an expat, American and Friends of Portugal. So a lot of them were Americans, but a lot of them from other parts of the world. And what was really nice is that we weren't moving to join a community of Americans. We're going to settle down to be American in another country. These people all have the same mindset of going into the culture and understanding the people and understanding the language. What we really enjoyed about this group, and these are similar groups out there, is that these groups understand what you're going through, but they also understand it's a moving target and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, here's a list of everything you need, just follow this list and everything will go great. Aside from COVID, which obviously mixed things up, Portugal and their embassies in other countries, they changed the rules, changed the requirements. They said, here's what we've done most recently. We'll update you as soon as possible. And then connecting us with people that have just been here, are going here, are planning to go. And then we share stories. So I think it's sharing the experience from the sense of, I'm going to share this information. Here's what I know as of today. How can I help you connect with somebody? And that led to the further connection with local individuals that grew up in Portugal that are here as our friends. So I think those groups mentally help you prepare. They help you with resources, but also they help you with just general support. Saying, no, I understand that. Let me see. And we found people that were reached out to government agencies for us, reached out to attorneys for us when we needed to. When we were trying to get here during COVID, we had people reaching out to the airport. Can they fly and do they need a test? They were that invested in us. And that happens all the time.
Wonderful. Okay. So you're traveling to another country. What do you bring? How do you pack for something like this? This has got to be a major life shift, stuff to sell, stuff not to sell.
Yeah. I think that we've narrowed it down to two groups of people that move out of the country, move to another country. There's two groups of type of people that move. There's the ones that whatever I can fit in my bag, that's what I'm taking, and then that's it. It's like, I'm done. I'm relinquishing everything. Those are the minimalists, if you will. Or there's individuals that understand that your memories can be digitized and there's other things, but they're not, I need all these material things. I want to acclimate and get everything new in the country. I can do that. That's that one camp. Move with whatever's on your back. Then there's those that I need to bring certain stuff. There's obviously families that move that need certain things. So there's the shippers, as I call them. So the whole process, you got your packers and you got your shippers. And so the shippers were, to advise them what you should bring. And I always tell people this. I said, well, the big things are, for Portugal, furniture is really different. It's smaller. You're not going to find what you're used to. So if you can't live with that, bring certain pieces like this and you'll be fine. If you're looking for certain medications or things that might be a little more expensive, stock up on this and ask friends to bring it later. You know, those are the kind of things we say, you know, everything else you can buy here relatively cheap, or you want to buy things that are here, electronics and things that are be compatible. So I think that we were packers. We were saying, you know what, we were minimalists anyways. We sold everything we could. We didn't bring a stick of furniture. We had about 4 bags we still need to bring, mostly of books, but we said it's mainly our clothes, so you didn't have to purchase anything new from that standpoint. And we're ready to, and we'll talk about this in a minute, accommodations when you're here. Mm-hmm. Everything else is how can you transition yourself to a new life and rebuild those material things that you do need to live. So, and again, these expat groups help those that are shippers, saying, what should I bring? How should I bring it? There's a whole community for that and advice on how to do it, because every country is different in their custom requirements. That can be a little tricky.
Yeah. Now, you were in San Francisco. Did you guys actually have a car, or did you use the BART system or public transportation, stuff like that?
My partner hadn't had a car for like 15 years, and I sold mine about 3 or 4 years ago. So we were basically in public transit. So we were used to it in a major city. And being in a European country, you're mostly going to depend on that.
Okay. Because I remember when I moved to Jersey City, I don't know if you remember when I moved to New Jersey, I had a car, and there would be months at a time I would have it in parking, because it's like, I don't use it. I just use the light rail, or I use whatever. So, I mean, it was making more sense that way. What about pets? Did you guys have any pets or anything like that?
We have a lot of friends that brought pets over. My pet, unfortunately, she was about 12, 13 years old. So we thought, you know what, she's healthy, but don't put her through the stress. And our roommate was happy to adopt. So we were very happy to have a home for her. It was great. We transitioned her. But the friends that we had that brought pets, cats and dogs, overall, it's a pretty, I want to say, easy process. For small animals, you can carry them on the plane. Other ones, it's a little more tricky for bigger animals. But I think for Portugal itself, all I can say is it seemed like there wasn't really any barriers to get them in here as long as you have the right paperwork. Okay. It's all a process of your last veterinary check, blah, blah, blah. They didn't bring any diseases, things like that.
Do they also have provisions for service animals? Do you know? Is that something that they do?
Not as far as having a service animal in the city.
Yeah.
Going with you. I have not experienced that. I haven't seen a lot of that. They are very, as a culture here, they're very accommodating and make sure people need what they need, but I haven't been into restaurants because of COVID as much. Mm-hmm. So we haven't seen, like, do I have a service dog in there? They have a lot of outdoor seating, so it's never really an issue for having animals outdoors.
Yeah.
And that's as much as I know. We are researching it. So when we launch our blog, we'll have a piece about for, you know, travelers that are handicapped or other enabled, that is it a safe place to go, other accommodations. So hopefully we'll follow up on that question.
Yeah. Thank you. And then at the same time, you talked earlier about, you know, this is the time of COVID, obviously. Yeah. Flying in and out of the country, that's got to be a navigating nightmare. Talk to me about how you arrange the flights and making all that done within this time frame.
I think ideally, aside from COVID time, it would be, you know, if you're traveling internationally and it's a big move, get the flight least stops as possible. That's always been our advice to travel, especially far away. You're going to have all this stuff. You're going to be tired. Get one long haul, or at least no more than one stop. Get there and get settled, because that's going to be the big challenge. What we experienced is a lot of rescheduling, obviously. What was open? What was our clearest path to get there? What was the safest route? So we ended up going through 2 stops, which was a little lengthy of a journey. But when we did it, it was in May. So things just kind of opened up, and we basically had when we landed in Frankfurt for a 6-hour layover, it was a surreal experience, because we basically, for 5 of the 6 hours, the airport was almost empty. I mean, imagine an airport the size of Frankfurt. It was just a desert in which I could take our masks off, hang out. But that's unusual. Some friends just went through Frankfurt and said it was pretty busy. It was busy as a weekday in a normal airport in the U.S. was, with all the safety precautions. So I think that for travelers getting back into flying or looking to move, airports are pretty safe. Airplanes, I think, are doing the right thing for the most part. I don't think you're going to have a problem. Just, you know, be aware of where you're flying through, and, you know, and that's what you need to watch for.
Okay. So let's then switch it up. Okay. So you just arrived in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you have to get your apartment? Is it an apartment? Is it a condo? What do you have?
The accommodations, it depends where you're going in the rules. Typically, they need to have at least a 6-month contract here with an apartment. What we did the extra mile and decided to make it just a little tougher on ourselves. and this is when we arranged it before COVID, typically you go into country, you'd want to get a furnished place first, even if for temporary. We were going to do an Airbnb, 6 months, what have you. I'd always recommend that for people moving to another country, especially if you don't know where you're going to buy or live long term. Get something that at least is minimally furnished. Don't look to buy furniture right away.
Yeah.
We found this excellent apartment through a friend. Long story short, we love it. So we came, she lent us a futon and a couple of chairs, and that's what we had for the first 2 weeks. Very challenging, but first world problems, if you will. And we had to build our house from the ground up. So our accommodations were set, and we had an apartment, and we just furnished it as much as we could throughout the last 4 months. But again, bottom line is when you're moving to another country, unless you've bought something right away, which I never recommend unless you've been to that country a million times, rent a place furnished for at least 3 to 6 months till you get settled. That's a really important factor.
Okay. Are you looking to actually make a purchase, or like, I know, like, for example, in Mexico, you can't actually, I don't know if they can purchase, they can lease up to 99 years or something like that. Do they have something similar in Portugal, or is it just you could purchase without any issues?
You can purchase without any issues. You can purchase before you get here. They have all sorts of programs supporting that. We personally, we're planning to spend at least a year where we are right now here in Porto on the coast. We're already loving it. We want to see, we like it. How's the winter? But we're going to explore other cities as our friends explore it. And the idea is to either move to another location just a little longer for renting, but definitely on the horizon within the next year or two, I'll probably end up buying one because it's so affordable. We're already living in the country. And two, we just happen to be in a climate and an atmosphere where mortgages worldwide, but especially here, are so affordable. It doesn't make sense not to invest if you can and are willing to, take up roots. So there's no issues purchasing here. It's a little different process in real estate here. It's a little bit more upfront investment for legal, but in the end, it's such a cheap interest. It's like, wow. And it's the path we're going to take, probably, most likely, eventually.
I want to talk about two things that I didn't actually put on here. One is you have the euro there, but the value of your dollar or stretches much better in Portugal because of the cost of living expenses.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that, but at the same time, I also want to set us up for another question. But let's talk about that really quick. So, because when I go to, say, the northern Europe, they use the euro, but the cost of living is much higher there. So, talk to me about your planning and budgeting for this type of a journey.
Good question. I think overall, it depends on where you're coming from, right? Where you're living in the U.S. So we came from one of the most expensive cities in the U.S. So it was a great benchmark saying, okay, everything's going to be cheaper no matter what it is here. But, we said on average in California, if we went to dinner, how much this car, what groceries cost, we're still 4 months here and saying, man, this would cost a minimum 3 times the amount in the U.S. So that's how we're averaging our costs. Unless you live like in the Midwest in a low cost area, for the most part, if you're on a coastal city, you're going to be spending at least 50% or less, or saving 50% or more in what you spend here. So our budgeting, when we came into this, looking at the research, told us, okay, your day-to-day living, your rent, your utilities, here's your target. Okay, you can afford this much, and here's how much you're getting for your money. And then food and entertainment, yes, much less. And it's meeting our expectations from what our research is. So I think my takeaway from that, when people are thinking about budgeting and they're doing the research, like we did it through International Living. You mentioned that we had this discussion before. It was one of the major first resources that said, for a couple living on 1,200 euros a month, you can live in blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if you're living way outside the city. So understanding there's certain caveats to that. Take that research as a base, get to the expat groups, find out what they're really living off of and what you want to do, and then go from there. So our budget's actually meeting our expectations, and actually we're saving a lot more because, again, we go back to the time we're in now. COVID prevented us from doing a lot of the travel we meant to do. So we're kind of like, oh, well, we're hanging out and just not doing that yet.
But it's a good opportunity for you to really get in deep with Porto. And it sounds like there's a great opportunity there. Do you travel locally to Lisbon and other places like that, or?
Yeah, it's very accessible. The only place we haven't gone to Lisbon because it's a little hotspot right now, but we have a lot of tours we're starting to do. There's companies and locals that we're going to day trips and overnight trips to wine country and up and down the coast. So we will be publishing some things about, these local travels because, like you said, it's a good time where we can't travel as much internationally as we're comfortable with. But this country is about the third size of California, so it's very easy to get around. Yeah. So take advantage of it. The country's open for business, if you will. You just kind of have to monitor, and everybody pretty much is following the rules. So you feel safer.
One of the other things I didn't bring up here that
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about previously. I don't think through this medium, but I think we talked about it just through Facebook and stuff, is the language. And having to adapt to that, because it's Portuguese. It's not something you
Oh,
find readily in the
you
States. So talk to
know,
me about that process.
it's been interesting because for many people, especially in California or on the West Coast, no Latin languages. So if you know French, Spanish, things like that, it's an advantage. I knew enough Spanish to get around. My husband's Cuban, so he speaks fluent Spanish.
Okay.
So we started studying some Portuguese before we came. So that barrier from a reading and understanding standpoint wasn't too bad because I can read about 75% and understand. He's much more fluent. I think someone that doesn't know any Latin language but understand, have heard Spanish and seen it, they'll say, I recognize the words, but since it's Latin based, but when you hear it, that's the biggest challenge in Portuguese, especially continental Portuguese, not Brazilian, because they're two different dialects, if you will. In continental Portuguese, when you hear it, you've heard a lot of people saying, ooh, it sounds Russian, the way they say their things. And so I think that at this point, whatever country you go to, whatever language you're learning, you always want to start with getting some basics, the greetings, what are directions. I've already taken one class. I've taken a Skype course, an accelerated 6-week course, which was very tiring, but it gave me some grammar basics. And we're going to be taking a full course starting mid-October in person at a local school, all government funded, which is a great program. And so I think the government, at least this government, really supports immigrants, and you're going to plan to live here, great. To get citizenship, you have to have a certain level of competency in language. So they offer these classes. So between studying a little before, all the locals, for the most part, speak English to an extent. What surprised us is that you think utilities and things like that would have some more English avenues because of expats. Not the case. So that was some of the challenges of trying to communicate and get some things set up. But language, hearing it, very challenging. Reading it, not so bad. So we're kind of a middle ground with Portuguese.
Do you have some basic conversational, like can you say hello or something like that to us?
Well, hola. It's
Hola.
similar to Spanish. Hola.
That's very similar to Spanish.
Yeah, bon dia, bon tarde, bon noite, good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Okay.
I can probably order meals. I can say, where is this? What is this? My husband can carry on a pretty good conversation and understand about 80% of what he's hearing, depending on the dialect, accent. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's talk about timelines, because planning this out is not something you just do over the weekend. It's like, what were your timelines?
Our timelines were, I've heard people doing it in less than 3 months and just want to get here, which is great. That's fine for them. But I think that from a practicality standpoint, everything you need to arrange from your finances to, the embassy thing, especially in the time of COVID. Hopefully we won't be saying that in a couple of years. I think that our timeline was about 2 years in the planning, since we got married and we finally got here. We had a 12-month, dedicated time. And by the time I got to the 12-month mark, it was okay, things started to go in action. Yeah. We need to go out there again, get a place reserved, figure out our finances, start applying at the embassies, things like that. So I think our timeline was a good 12 months of activity, but overall 2 years of planning and activity. And that's not uncommon. People that reach out to these groups, I plan to move in a year or two. It's always a year or two. Some are longer, but they know that within 2 years of their target date, they've got to start organizing things and understanding what needs to be done.
Okay. Do you have a lot of people that you know through this group that are like digital nomads, or are these people who, because of their job, they moved there?
Actually, it's interesting. A lot of people we befriended here know, a lot of them are recent retirees.
Okay.
They're pretty young. I mean, that's why they come here, because they can retire younger. So most of them are retired, but I have met a lot of nomads through groups I've known here that through associations or going out to certain bars and stuff. I'm like, oh, you work at that. This is your workspace. They have a lot of co-working spaces. So I've seen a mix through other countries, actually, that have landed here because they do graphic design or other things that allow them to do it online. Yeah.
Cool. Now, what exactly does the citizenship process look like, and what are the timelines along that?
It's really nice, actually. Now, it was originally 8 years, and they've nailed it down to 5 years to your path to citizenship. So right now, for instance, the last few months, we would have gotten it sooner, but you would get our residency card first. So it's like your green card. It's like, okay, I'm here, I'm living, I'm legal. So it took us a while to get our final appointment, but they worked with our timeline. So we're getting a residency card, which gives us access to national health care. We also got private insurance, all that. So we have all that set up. But the citizenship timeline is you get your residency first, then it's good for 3 years, 2 years, and then you can apply for citizenship. It's like you renew it after a certain amount of years. So once you're here 5 years, and you have to be here more than 6 months out of the year, some formula they have, you can apply to be a citizen within Portugal, which is part of the EU system. And I think there's basic requirements. One of them was a little bit of language competency, but they may be playing with that also. So it's now once you're established, you just wait the timeline out of 5 years. There's no other quick way around that. You just have to, be here and be living.
I was going to say, because you have the card, do you have to reapply for like a visa or anything like that? Or is it just the card will bypass that?
The card because we had a 90-day visa to get here. So it gives us a little bit more time than the normal traveler. That was waived because of COVID. So when we got here, they didn't require everybody that was in the country were good to at least October, and then they extended that. Okay. So the country worked with the people that were here for immigrants, and those of us that had immigration appointments, because we had to wait a month and a half to redo it. The good thing is we didn't have to drive 5 hours to the appointment. We got to be in the same city.
Oh, good. So, that's nice.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, and it was an easy process, but there's a lot of checkpoints, and we won't go through this call because the bureaucracy here is a lot different than it is in the U.S. It depends on where you live in the city sometimes and what paperwork you need. It's really interesting.
The one thing I also want to touch on really quick is because, and I think you had brought up healthcare. I know here in the States, like we have our HMOs and stuff like that. The only thing I remember from just in my travels over to Europe is the pharmacies. Those are very easily spottable. They're always with these green crosses that you can see everywhere you go. What is the healthcare system like there, and how does that exactly work?
There's two things. There's the national healthcare system, which any resident or citizen will have access to once you get your residency and you have your health number, because there's like 5 different numbers you need: your fiscal number, your tax number, your residence number, and then your health number. So they have all these fun little numbers all in the same system. But once you have that, you have access, and we're covered automatically into emergencies for healthcare. So if we need to go to the hospital and something major, we don't have to worry. We're not going to come home with like thousands of dollars of bills. So there's the national health care, which is overall, I mean, if that's all you could afford, and it's basically free for you, and you have minimal copays, it's a good system. Where it lacks is when people need specialized treatment or you need hip surgery. It's not an emergency, so you have to wait 6 months to get it. Versus if you get private health care, you have access to certain facilities a lot faster. The quality care in the national healthcare system is actually very, very good. It's just specialized things, especially when you get older and other pre-existing conditions. That's when you supplement your national healthcare with private insurance. Okay. Private insurance is overall, especially coming from the US, I want to say the word's dirt cheap, but it is very, very affordable. Even for the lowest amount, you get a good clinical care on the regular basis. We went for kind of the mid-range. I think the advice I have for individuals, if they're coming from Portugal, probably applicable to some other countries, but looking at private health insurance, look at 2 things. One, depending on your age, your pre-existing needs, pre-existing conditions, if you will. Yeah. A lot of private insurance does not cover it. There is one we found that does after a year. That was a key for us. Not that we had any major health things, but you wanted to make sure anything that you were born with was covered later. A lot of private does not cover that, which was really interesting. And the other, plan for enrolling insurance, because even when you get private insurance and you need to go do something, a lot of times there's a 60 or 90-day waiting period before you can activate all your benefits, because they want to make sure people don't come over and say, oh, all of a sudden I have this thing, get all the surgery done, and then back out of the insurance plan. Yeah, it's just, those are the big picture things. But at the end of the day, it's national health insurance, almost free, very accessible. Then your private one basically supplements the national health care. Okay. So, and what's nice about private and everything, it's good throughout the European Union and other countries. So, oh, nice. So we'll have access to things, emergency coverage. So when we travel, unless we're going to the US, things like that, it'll be covered in all the EU system, if you will. So that's, it's a really nice.
Excellent
benefit to have.
Yeah. What about acclimation challenges? Anything that really stuck out to you?
I think that if we keep asking ourselves, what's the worst part of, most challenging part about being here? And I think it goes back to, I mentioned before about there's a language barrier when you're utilities or ordering things or having things delivered, it sounds like it should be really easy. No, it took us like 15 visits to get our internet set up the right way, which was interesting. A lot of language barriers. Ordering furniture, part of it was COVID related because there was challenges with some shipping, but some of the companies are just super, super slow. So I think the biggest is just having patience. Where can I get these things? I'm going to go get this and only have one of the 3 items I need. So it's that original conversation we had about what are your expectations to move, and you have to embrace what the country is and the process is. They don't move as fast. The other one, I would say, it's not a challenge for us, but I want to mention people because a lot of Americans come over, and I'll say that, they come over with a preconceived idea of like, I'm going to go out and have a meal. Why are they taking so long to serve me? Most Latin countries, a lot of European countries, you go to dinner or lunch, you're there for a good couple hours. So relax, understand that's what it is, and we enjoy it. But sometimes we're like, we've been here 4 hours, we should really get the bill. And so that could be some people are cons saying, it's so frustrating, but you need to relax and understand that's the culture here.
So if I'm considering relocation, because it is something that's definitely, and we talked about it. I mean, I think originally I was thinking about Ecuador, down the line or something like that. Because again, in thinking about retirement, especially if I move into full-time instruction as opposed to the administration work that I do, traveling the world is just something I've always desired to do, and maybe staying like a year or two in one location or a year or two in another location. That's just visiting. But if I wanted to move to another place, like what are the pros of relocating to another country?
I think the biggest pro, you nailed it, is if you're a traveler or an adventurer, depending where you go, like we come to Europe, you could create a base to discover a whole new set of cultures around you and more accessibility. So depending where you go, even if it's like Japan or something like that, I think that's a big pro. You take your life to the next level of enlightenment. Because we're always learning, and it's the best way to learn about other places and history is to go live it and live in it. I think that's a big pro. And I think another pro is, if you plan it right, there could be definitely a financial benefit to that. Depending where you're going, not everything is cheaper in some countries, but if you pick the right place and that's your intent, you can find places that are much more affordable. And I think the third thing is there is a sense of safety and cover. Like for us, this is a very safe country. We know that our health is covered. So those stresses you have, especially in America where people work 60, 80 hours a week, unfortunately, just to make ends meet, that pressure's off. And I can explore my writing and my career in a much different path. And that's a huge pro because my mind is in a different place to succeed for myself and my relationship and the relationship I have with friends and family.
Excellent. What about as far as any cons for not being here in the U.S.?
I think the cons, we viewed it, but especially in the time we're living in, and we won't say any more on that. I think that we're look back going, I'm really happy we're here and not in other places right now. There's a lot of strife going on. There's a lot of frustration. Hopefully in a year or two, it won't be that way. I think the con for us personally is just, the things you take matter of fact. Or, I can just go get this here and I know where to get it now. It's like, okay, I need to get an extension cord. They don't have hardware stores necessarily. They do, but they don't. So what do you do to find those things? So it's acclimating to searching for certain things we're used to on a day-to-day basis, but we're stepping back and always saying, okay, that was frustrating, but there's 15 other things that balance that. So I think maybe that's the biggest con for us is just not having knowing everything that's around us.
The conveniences.
The conveniences, right? That'll eventually go away. And I think those cons will definitely diminish as you live in a place longer, for sure.
Okay, cool. And then in terms of any residual questions, like, I know, as we say, hindsight is 20/20, but are there any things that you really wish that you would have known before going over there that wasn't answered by the expat group or by any of the research that you did previously?
I think the biggest two things probably was someone to, I would go back to the health insurance and getting that started earlier, so it wasn't much of a headache later. There's some things there. And the other would be, it sounds small, but we didn't talk about this, but when you talk about your utilities, in your phone, we have new phones over here, new phone numbers over here, but we didn't port our number over, and it's a really pain in the butt process to do. So if someone really said, no, really, really, do before you leave the U.S., and people told me, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it later. If you want to keep a U.S. number and be less of a headache for everybody, especially if you have a business like myself, I'm still trying to figure out how to get my U.S. number hooked back up. I think that was the biggest thing. When I wish someone says, don't forget, don't get on that plane till your number's ported. Whatever. I said, whatever. I'll figure it out later, people. And then I look back going, seriously, that was such an easy thing. But I mean, it's a small problem because I figured a way around it. So I think other than that, I don't think I had any other issues. I think it's because we were the packers, not the shippers. So we had no other regrets of what we brought or what we didn't bring, because we knew we're just going to build a new life here. I think there wasn't really any of the questions we had. We did our research. And I think when people say, what should I do before I go? I said, get to know an expat group, review your checklist, and keep checking with yourselves as you're planning. Is it, is everything going well? Is it what my expectations are? Look for red flags before you get any further in the process.
Excellent. Well, I really want to thank you so much for sharing this information with myself and my students. It's been really insightful. I can tell you, I learned a lot, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Now, if people wanted to just get general information from you, or if they were interested in just some of the work you do as far as your blog goes, the best place to find you is MDAB Travelers, which stands for?
My dogs are barking.
Because of all the walking you do.
Exactly. Yeah, our blog, it's not officially launched, but I think I can confidently say that October 2020, in the next week or two, it'll be live. We have blogs that we're setting up. So it was a little delayed because of the move, but we have the Facebook site. So if people want to come ask questions, I welcome them. Reach out, make a comment, reach out Messenger. Especially if you're coming to Portugal, but Europe in general, we know a lot of people over there. So we'd definitely love to engage with anybody looking for some resources. And then as we launch our blog, we'll definitely be sharing more. Our approach is a little different, but we're definitely like with you. We network with individuals like you because it's a big process, whether you're vacationing, looking to change careers, or move permanently. It takes a village, and this village is worldwide now.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So thank you so much again for sharing that. Now, for my students that are out there, if you have any questions or any comments about this or any other topic, you could certainly send them also to me at scott@theprofessortravel.com. I can forward those on to Justin. Again, we want to make sure that those are being answered for you in a timely manner. If you are on YouTube right now and you want to be notified when new videos go up, hit the bell icon at the top in order to be notified of that. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and it certainly helps out. And of course, if you like this content and you want to see more of it, give us a thumbs up and we'll be more than happy to do that. But if you are hearing us on a podcast, certainly feel free to give us a like, give us a rating. We really appreciate that. But until next time, make every day a travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye now.